Let's start. Let's start the discussion. Like last time, what we did is we have database connectivity with JDBC, and we wrote servlets, right? Servlets. What we did, we wrote registration servlet class, and in that registration servlet class, we have registration servlet class. We are yet to write login servlet class. And basically our assumption is like when somebody try to access our application, then they need to register, and when they try to register, we request client or user to provide basic information, and we capture this information from UI and we pass it to the servlet, right? So once it receives, how do you make a particular class servlet class? By extending HTTP servlet, and then as it is, you are taking the data, you are carrying the data, it's a kind of a create, so you are going for do post. When you overriding do post, you will get HTTP request, HTTP response objects, right? So request object will have all the user provided information. So you extract those information, and then you validate whether the basic username passwords are both passwords, validation password are proper or not. If it is not, you will set that attribute. If it is the same, then you go and update your registration details model. Then you pass that registration model to repository DAO where our JDBC connection related stuff is there, and you call the save registration details. So the save registration details method will save all the data that you passed into the database. Once it is success, you will get the result as 1. If you get the result as success, then you can display to the user, we successfully saved your details in the database. If it is not the case, we need to communicate to the user something went wrong in failed to store, you failed to store your data, failed to register with info provided, please try again, something like this. And then now you updated with whatever based on the inputs, based on the validations, you updated the status, and then you are going to use request dispatcher class. What it does is request dispatcher, request dot get request dispatcher, and you are calling once the successful, like let's say all this information has been provided from the register page. Register page, when I say page, it's HTML page or JSP page on the client side. Okay, and then you provided a registration success.jsp as a response. Okay, that is the request dispatcher, and you are filling up with request dispatcher where to go upon the next step, and and you are going to forward that request dispatcher to by passing the request data and response data. Make sense? Okay, so our next goal is write login. What is the login purpose? Like user is going to provide his username, password, and what you will do, you will go all the way to the backend system and verify whether this guy with username password is present or not. If he is there, you will say, hey, we successfully identified you in our database, so please go ahead, proceed. If we didn't identify, if you are not able to find, then we will say we couldn't find your credentials, please go back and check your credentials. Make sense? So let's write a login servlet class. Okay, how do you make a simple class into a servlet class? Extends HTTP servlet. Okay, then public void do post, and we are overriding, right? HTTP servlet request comma HTTP servlet response. Then this time what happens? User is provided his username password, right? So you're going to access those details. String login ID, you can call it whatever you want. Request dot get request parameter, sorry, and you need to map it properly. Okay, username string password equal to request dot get parameter password. Then you need to return back with some message, right? So I'm just taking a dummy message equal to then what we'll do, repository do, right? We'll send it to do equal to new repository do. Then you create what you call another model object with the login information, or else what is there with new repository is there. So if I want to verify, right, username password, select start from register where username password, select user info, who is using select user info. Yeah, get user detail, what we are passing, login ID and password. So you don't need to write what you call model object, but if you want to write, you can write it, but there is no point. Okay, so you got the registration object, and then boolean result equal to repdo dot get user credentials. Okay, so login ID and password are passing. So this guy is not returning anything, so I want to return this guy as a boolean, right, if it is success or not. So I'm going to take the results here. Here also some boolean result assigned to null. Sorry, by default false. And what I will do, if it is there, is there any way that we can do other way, simple way? By passing username and password, what we are trying to do is, if we are able to find the result, then what does it mean? It is true. If it is not the case, if we didn't find any results, result equal to false. Agreed? Okay. And then what we need to do, here we can return result. So now if you come back here, you will get the result back. Right? Are you guys with me? Now what we can do, if result, what does it mean? If true, right? Then what we can do, you can write a message equal to login successful, welcome to Bell dashboard. Else username, password invalid, please try again. Right? And then you are going to set that request dot set attribute. You can call it as info message. Then what you do, you'll create a request dispatcher. Request dispatcher odd equal to request dot get request dispatcher. Where do you want to result.jsp? Okay, I will write these JSPs and then rd dot forward req same request resp response. Okay, so yep, see basically what happens right now, there are two different URLs, right? One is http colon localhost colon 8080 slash, for time being let's assume, okay, somebody says register.jsp. okay, what will happen, you will have a text fields here, username, I'm just quickly doing text area, okay, password, text area, email, text area, and what else, full name, text area. And then there will be submit button. As soon as this guy submits the button, right, as soon as this guy submits the button, it will reach, right? What will happen, your application is running with this, with whatever we wrote as of now, your application is running. What will happen, as soon as it submit the button with slash register.do, then first thing what will happen, it will identify, oh, it is localhost, so he is calling within the same system 8080. It looks for what is running on the 8080. Our Tomcat server is running. Okay, what is next? So it will reach the Tomcat. It will reach the Tomcat first, localhost, and there are n number of servers running, right? Your Eclipse is running, your Postgres is running, your browser is running, your command prompt is running, your go-to-meeting is running. There are a bunch of things are running now, but it identifies whether it Tomcat or not by going to the particular port. Then register. Now, then when it says /register.do, then it goes to here. First thing is web.xml, what and all configured in the web.xml. It identifies this. Once it identifies corresponding rich servlet name, it identifies. Once it identifies the URL pattern, it identifies corresponding servlet name. Once it identifies the corresponding servlet name, it will go to servlet block. It will try to match where is the servlet name is matching. It will match the register, servlet name as register. From here, it will go to corresponding register servlet class. Okay, when it is creating this registration servlet class, what it will do, as it is extending HTTP servlet, it will call, as it is having request object already, response object already, this two objects has been created. This request object is already populated with all the client provided information. You take all the information, you do all the validations, you call to the database, you save it in the database and return back. You set the result in the set attribute. You're going to access these set attribute results in the, once you go back to registration status page, you will access these results. Okay, if it is validation successful, is validation info is successful, display this. If validation info is failed, display this kind of thing. Okay, so what is the life cycle? What is the life cycle? What is the life cycle? There are three methods are there, like, if somebody asks what is the life cycle of servlets, what are the life cycle methods? There are three important methods: init, do post, init, something like this. I mentioned, I guess we can go directly here. Typing it here. Yeah, servlet life cycle methods are init, service, destroy. What happens? Init will be called by the container. It will be called only once. Init method will be used to initialize the servlet instance, and it will be called by the container only once in the life cycle. Service method contains the code to process the client request. This will be called by the container per each request. Destroy is used to destroy the service instance. Before destroying the instance code cleanup will be triggered to close the connections. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, there will be three methods. Okay, so when your application is when your application is trying to up through Tomcat, along with Tomcat, right, what it will do, Tomcat understands only web.xml. It doesn't understand your programs. Agreed? So web.xml it looks for what and all in the when you deploy the application, when you start the server, it looks for all the web app, this structure, what and all the servlets defined. Okay, these and all these servlets are defined. Okay, let me load those servlet. That's what Tomcat does. Let me load the servlet, registered servlet, login servlet. Okay, and then it looks what and all the methods defined in the register servlet. Let's say in register servlet there is a method called void init. I'll show it. register, no, it's yeah, register servlet loaded. Okay, let me copy paste here as well. You can write as many servlets as you want, like, you know, once you log in, if you want to do some menu tab and sub menu tabs, anything you want to do, you can do it, right? Those many servlets you're going to write. So what happens is this init method, when this loaded, right, let's see the life cycle, you will understand. Yeah, so this is the life cycle of the servlet life cycle in details. When you give the first request to the servlet, the following things will be done by the container, will be triggered by the container. Okay, first what it will do, container identifies the servlet class for the given request with the help of URL pattern in web.xml file. That's what we discussed. Identified servlet class will be loaded into the main memory. Servlet instance will be created by the container by calling the default constructor. Okay, that's how we will create, right? And then servlet config object will be created, and this object will be initialized with any parameter specified in servlet tag.xml. Servlet config object we haven't discussed, I will explain, don't worry. Servlet object config object will be created, and this object will be initialized with any parameter specialized in servlet tag in web.xml. Then servlet context object will be created associated with the servlet config. Okay, servlet context container at the server startup and initialized with the context parameters in web.xml. I'll explain these two, don't worry, I'll quickly explain. Then what will happen, container invokes init method by passing the servlet config as a parameter. A thread will be created to serve the given request. Then what will happen, HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response objects will be created by the container. Then our service method that we are doing, do post or service or do get, will be triggered. Service method will be invoked by request and response parameters along with the request and response parameters. Then the request will be processed, response data will be placed into the output stream, and after flushing the stream, then request and response objects will be destroyed and thread will be created. The thread created at 7th step. From then onwards, container identifies the servlet class and it directly jumps to a thread will be created. These steps 2 to 6 happens only one time in entire application startup. Okay, so there are 2 points, right? I supposed to explain you guys what is context and what is config. Simple terms, remember. Okay, okay, these are 2 servlets, servlet 1, servlet 2. Okay, context is global, simple. Okay, context is global. Servlet, the data that you keep it in context, servlet 1 can access, servlet 2 also can access. Okay, config is tied up with the servlet, specific servlet. So config 1, config 2. You can't, servlet 1 cannot access config 1, servlet 2 cannot access config 1, servlet 1 cannot access config 2. So only it happens like this. Servlet 1 can access config 1, servlet 2 can access config 2. It's specific to servlet. Context is global. Okay. So how do you define the context and config? Right? Servlet context is an object which contains the info about the entire application, not specific to login, not specific to register. Servlet context will be created by the container at the server startup. Make sense? Okay, what does it mean? One JVM, one Tomcat, 5 applications, all will be shared by one context. Now we are doing a login and register application, and if you write another application with Facebook application, another with Twitter, if you deploy into the same Tomcat, the data, the context, whatever the data that you keep in servlet context can be accessed by all the 3 of them. Okay, how do you keep the data in servlet context? This is the steps. Okay, so I'm just copy pasting, and just for your understanding, where do you want to copy, right? That's the reason I'm just copying. Okay, this is the way you define the context. See this, do you see does this context anywhere tied up with any of the servlets? No, right? Okay, how do you define config? Is an object created by the container. When you send the first request to each servlet will have its own servlet config. That's what I'm trying to say in the earlier diagram. This is the piece. I think it will be part of servlet. Yeah. So this param is specific to register servlet, right? So if I want to keep here in the servlet, you can keep companies. Once you log in, you can show like Bell Info Inc. Make sense? Okay, that's it. How do you access this data in your application? I already mentioned this. Okay, just to simply copy paste this to like servlet config. When you ask servlet config, you'll get this from your everything, get init parameter, you'll get it. Same. Here, if I keep these guys here, and you can say, you can write here public static, public, or else private string admin email equal to null, and then you can initialize this admin email. You can initialize this admin email, right? So how do you access? Simple. As you got already config, city. Now if you want, you can add those things in your request dot set attribute city city by city. You are giving back to the JSP page whatever you set here. You are responding back these details to the back to the client. Admin details. Right? If it is successful, you can send these details as well. Even if it is failure also, you can send. And you can save or contact below admin. Okay, that's it. So next is, yeah, there are three types of scopes in servlet. The scopes are really important. Okay, keep in mind, we keep on using the scope, and what is the scope in Spring as well. So there are three scopes in the servlet: request scope, session scope, context scope. Okay, what does it mean is, client, your browser, your server. Okay, request goes, request comes back, right? This is the request one, response one. So whatever data goes from here, whatever data goes through this request and dies here, once it completes the process, it's done. It doesn't remember the next request. So that is called request scope. This is the whatever the data you use within the request, single request, within the single request, that is called request scope. Okay, let's say you have request to, request response to. Okay, you pass first one, like there, let's say, imagine you are trying to register and there are more than one page to provide your all your information. In single page you can't able to, there are a lot of fields, so you can't provide all the information in a single page, so they develop two pages. So first page you provided all the your personal details, second page you are providing professional details. How does it match the first page details with the second match, right? So you need to remember, when you are entering second page details, you need to remember first page details as well, right? That is called session scope. That is called session scope. This is one user, right? Let's say another user, second user also doing the same thing, right? Second user also do registers and provide all the details. Second professional page provides all the details, right? So if you want to keep the data across the users, then it is called context scope. Makes sense? Per request is request scope. Between this request is sessions, between the session request but single user, that is session scope. Between the requests across the users, that is called context scope. Okay, so request scope can be accessed within one request and response scenario only. Session scope is accessed with across multiple requests and response by the single client. Each client will have its own session. Context scope. Context can be accessed across multiple requests and response by multiple clients. That is, all the client will have only one context. Okay, these are the three types of scopes, remember. Okay, then parameters versus attributes. You remember we used request.get parameters and versus attributes. So types of parameters: request parameter, config parameter, context parameter. Request parameter is within the request scope. Config parameter is session scope. Context parameter is context scope. Okay. So if you remember here, get init parameter, right? This is called config parameter. This is context scope. This is config scope. Okay. And setting the parameters will be done by the container. Whatever the user provides, that will be set by the container. And types of attribute: request attribute, session attribute, context attribute. We have to set the attribute explicitly to the request, session and context objects. Then only you can get the attributes from the object. Okay. Then yeah, when do you call the get session? People call session, right? Session is nothing but between the requests. You log into the application and you are trying to do multiple transfers, you're trying to add an account, you're trying to look at your transactions, you are doing multiple operations, right? Multiple activities you are doing on the client side. How does it remember, like you are the same person that are doing using the session? Okay. So there are different types of sessions creation. How do you create a session? I mentioned steps here. We are not going to go details into this. So go back and look at these steps, and you can pretty much understand. Okay. Okay, that's all about servlets. So let's come back to JSPs. Let's see if I can cover JSP's topic first and then program second. There is no much thing specific to servlets. JSPs are nothing but servlets on the client side. Simple way of explaining, servlets are what? Servlets are server side components, right? Server side components. JSPs are client side components, and they act like a servlets on the client side. Okay. Whenever we say client side, you can't write the Java code. You can write it, but I'm trying to say is like you going to go into the different world. Like, you need to follow HTML tags, you need to follow CSS tags, you need to follow JavaScript tags, you need to follow JSP tags, but you can't write plain Java there on the client side. So JSP will be divided into three sections, basic sections. Okay, whatever you wrote in JSP page, that will be divided into three parts: scriptlets, expressions, declarations. Okay, what is scriptlet, what is expressions, what is declaration, we'll see in the below section. And just like servlets having life cycle, right? What is that? Init, service, destroy. Life cycle of JSP also JSP init underscore JSP service, JSP destroy. Okay. Scriptlet, what is a scriptlet? It's a simple JSP element. You can represent, if you write something like this, if you write anything in between, that is scriptlet. If you write anything in between these tags, that is called scriptlet. It's a JSP element in which we can write any Java valid statement. So inside you can write typical Java. All the Java statements inside the scriptlet must be terminated by semicolon. And then expressions. Expression is a JSP element which is a short form of out.println. If you want to write something on the client side, just like system.out.println, you can use the expression tag. What is the expression tag? This is the expression tag. And whatever you write inside, this one displays as system.out.println. Okay. Declaration. If you want to declare a variables, you declare the variables, you declare the methods, right? In JSP, in typical Java world, what do? You declare the variables, you write the methods, okay? And you declare the class, all these things, right? JSP element is a JSP element which we can write the following: variable declaration, method definitions, class definitions, interface definitions, everything. Okay, and then there are interesting concept called directives. JSP has provided some directives. What are directives? It's like you are going to communicate to the container, like just like import statements. What will happen when you say import statement here? That particular class will be available when your program is running, right? Same thing. You are using these directives to convey some data, you carry some data across your application. Okay. Directives is an instruction given to the container for a particular task. Okay, so there are different directives. One is include directive, page directive, tag lib directive. So this include directive is nothing but if you include, right, if you want to include one JSP page into another JSP page, right? If you write 4 to 5 JSP pages, header JSP page, footer JSP page, left menu JSP page, body JSP page. So if you want to keep all these pages in a single JSP page, you can use include JSP. Like you can take a full page JSP where you can add header.jsp on the top, footer.jsp on the bottom, left menu JSP on the middle, and remaining middle using div block you can write the body section. Okay, so page directive is something like if you want to extend like java.sql features into the JSP page. Okay, page directive can be used. And then JSP standard actions, these are all like another actions, like if you add this tag, it will perform something, as simple as that. So include action is this action will be used to include another JSP or HTML. If you write JSP include page, another HTML files, that page will be included. Make sense? Same thing, you just look at these tags, what and all the definitions are there. Okay, same thing, JSP scopes, like just like request scope, servlets having request scope and session scope, context scope. JSP also having page scope, request scope, session scope, application scope. Okay, the names itself you can easily understand what is the scope, right? I just explained, same concept apply here. Just read those statements. Okay, these are the built-in just like our built-in classes, these are the built-in objects that will be available through implicit objects in JSP. Okay, one is out and request. When you say request, it automatically available, like it does nothing but javax.servlet.htp.htp servlet request. Response scope, session scope, application scope, and page config, page context exception. Okay, among those, page context is what you call a built-in by default, like from page context you can access remaining all 8. Okay. Yeah, so this is the basic JSP page concepts, and I believe you guys know basic HTML as well. So let me show you simple program. Now we wrote servlet classes, we wrote database collections, everything. Now we want to write the JSP pages. How many JSP pages we required? So if you think, first page registration page, right? That page is used to get the user information, username, password, full name, email. Once you submit, what you will do? Once you submits, it will go to the server. It will validate at the server side, and at server it will say which page it's supposed to. If it is success, which page it's supposed to go. If it is failure, which page it is supposed to go. Let's say success and failure we are handling in a single page, that is nothing but registration status JSP. Okay, so another page we need, page 1, page 2 we need, and another one what we need to login page. And here you client have third page, username, password he enters and submit. When he enters submit, if it is success, it will go to the server. In server you will say success page, it will go to another success page. At least we need 4 pages, right? Result.jsp. So registration.jsp, registration status.jsp, and login.jsp, result.jsp. These are the four at least we need to write our application. Let's start writing those pages. How do you write JSP pages? Where do you need to write the JSP pages? Right? Next question. So this is the Java section. Okay. You have web app. WebINF is having web.xml, right? WebINF is having web.xml. Then parallel to web app, inside WebINF, parallel to WebINF, inside web app, you need to create the JSP pages. Right click on that JSP. Okay, I'll call register.jsp, and then what we need, once register we have registration success.jsp, and then what page we need, login, right? Login.jsp, and then what we need, result.jsp. Okay, we got all the pages, but we need to make sure we configure. So when register details, right? Where is that? When the register servlet, whatever the page, registration status.jsp, registration success.jsp page, right? It is. So what we need to do, registration status dot, I'll copy this guy and rename this page, because same name we need to use, right? Otherwise it can't identify the file name. It will say page not found error. Okay, and where is the login? Login, what we have, result.jsp, we have result.jsp, login and register.jsp. Perfect. So let's start writing a register page, okay, for now. So once we start writing register page, we'll start getting into some idea, okay. Okay, let leave it, whatever it is there, just leave it as it. In the body section, there is a div box which will, you just go back and look at W3 schools. That is not a big deal. I know you can learn in half an hour what is div box, all the stuff, okay. So here, yeah, and I'll say tags, h2 tag, login, register your account, right? Register or create an account. Create an account. Okay. Then there is a form tag will be there. Okay, form tag. Whatever we do inside form we will do. Okay. What kind of method it is? Registration. What kind of method it is? Post. Right. So you need to go for here also method equal to post. Okay. What when you submit this form with all the details, I'll tell you. Let's keep that open. We'll write it. So text we need, right? Input text. Input type equal to text. Title equal to, you can write anything, title, full name, placeholder, just to show you what exactly it is there. Some things you can ignore, I mean, doesn't make any sense. So these are like just a fancy. And then this is the name. So this one need to be in sync with this one. Okay. This name is in sync, should be in sync with whatever the request parameter that is going to try to fetch. This is the value that is going to access. Okay. So I'll copy paste and repeat 4 times because we have 4 attributes, right? Okay. All are text, but you know, you can say input type email as well. It will identify HTML5. Title is email. Placeholder is email. And value is email. Next one is text. Title is username. And same username for placeholder. For name as well. And then when you say password, right, it will store into, I mean, it doesn't show the password when you are typing. Password, password, password. Nice. So let's see what it is there. Password, 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 username, username, username. And then last one is confirm password is there. Okay, I need to use this. Password, re-enter password, placeholder is per re-enter password, and then this is the value. Okay, nice. So how do you submit? Using button. Button type is submit, and some class is equal to btn. You don't require, actually, just this is css classes, just for the sake of btn, and then register, that is the button name, register. Okay, this is the form. This is where client is going to provide the input. When you say text area, it will be text area will be displayed. When you enter data, the data will be captured in this full name. This is the key. The value that user provides is the value. Okay, this is the key, and this is the title, what to display next to. Okay. Yeah, you're good. This is done. But here action, what action? When you submit this button, what needs to happen? Is a postmate available, and you need to trigger register.do. This is the register.do, which will go all the way to your web.xml, and it identifies this register.do, and it opens up servlet name. You getting my point now? Okay, so this is the register page. What if successful happen? What if we store the data successfully? Yeah, this is the registration status page. What we need to do here, we need to write some basic Java code using Java, scriptlets like string validation data equal to null, and then if request dot get attribute. What is this? What we set in the registration? Once it is successful, we are setting these values, right? Set attribute, set attribute, set attribute. So request dot get validation info, get validation info, not null. Then you can get the validation data, right? Validation, this is the validation data equal to, if it is not null, and provide the value validation data dot to string. Okay, another one, what we can do, another two more fields we added, right? City and admin details. You can take string admin null string. Okay, what you can do here, you can get the same logic, you repeat it here to get the remaining two values, right? Validation city, then you can ask CIT city location. This is admin. Here admin, what is the value? That is admin details. Here you are setting the value, hash map, right? Setting the values and getting the values. Okay, now you can display all the details. Out dot, okay, out dot println of validation data, and then you can display same thing, copy paste, location admin. Okay, here once the login registration is successful, you want to redirect him to login page. How do you do that? href you can use, okay, equal to href equal to your application name. Servlet, what is the name of the application? Best way to get it is, because that is the location, right? So you need to go for the, where is that, where is that, where is that? Yeah, from in this project, what is the project location? Login.jsp page. You need to give this link, okay, so that it will be accessed from here. Okay, Then you can say login. Let's see what happens. So we finished all the login flow, so registration flow, sorry. So what I will do, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to redeploy the application. Clean. When I say clean, it will redeploy, I guess. Okay, I'll stop the server. Basically, it automatically updates whenever you do some changes, right? It will trigger, it will load the changes automatically. And then it will restart. Okay, so we remember the pages. Where is our server running? Localhost 8080 slash register dot JSP. Whatever. HTTP colon localhost 8080 slash register dot JSP. Oh, do you guys know? Did you guys remember? We did the same mistake last day before yesterday also. Need to pick this guy, server name, right? See, you got all the full name, enter the full name. The full name that is showing, right? That is the placeholder. This is the text area. Okay, makes sense. Okay, what I will do, Nagaraju B nog@gmail.com. Password username is Nagaraju. For sake of convenience, I'll keep Nagaraju. Same password, Nagaraju. Okay. So when I click register, okay, good. I got error because it is giving null pointer exception. Let's go back and see what is the error. It is saying arg.postgresql.driver not found because it is not there in our class path. How do we add into our class path? You need to add into your pom.xml. How do I add into pom.xml? As I know, I'm just going to add it here. Dependency. Yeah. Then group ID, artifact ID, version. Okay, so group ID is org dot PostgreSQL, and artifact ID is PostgreSQL. You can just googling it also, you can get PostgreSQL register. And dialect, this version is 9. What is version? 9.3.1100. Okay, 9.3.3-1100 hyphen JDBC 41. Okay, cool. So that is a, if you have MySQL, you need to copy the MySQL thing. Okay, now let me run the application. We need to redeploy the application, right? Stop the server. Okay, right click, delete the project, remove the project completely, freshly we can add. There are different ways. Sometimes your changes, if doesn't reflect, you need to do these things. You go back, you select your project, finish, and then start the application. Okay, your application started, right? Okay, star was started. Now I'll go back again, register.jsp. Okay, Nagaraju B, thanks. 468 Garaju, Garaju. See, you got successful and admin@email.com. You didn't get what? You didn't get city. Why the hell you didn't get the city? Yes, I'll show it to you, don't worry. City, right? From where you're asking city, init parameters, get servlet config, right? Servlet config. If you go to web.xml, you didn't configure the city, you configure the company. If you configure city here, Vienna, then you can get McLean. Okay, so you got registered. You got my point. So second page, we got successfully registered. When I click on register login, let me put something in the login page. It's a dummy page right now. Login page. Login h2. Login page under development. Please visit later. Okay. So if I click on this guy, login page under development, please visit later. Right? Now you need to start writing login related stuff. And once it is successful, you need to take the login servlet data, whatever you configured here, and display it back to the client in the results.jsp. So can you guys take it as an assignment and finish the remaining piece? What I will do, I will check in this piece into badge for GitHub location. I'll share the GitHub location so that you guys can go back and start